Alrighty then, welcome to another episode of the Online Prosperity Show. This is the number one place to discover the people, the ideas, and practical methods that help you create more freedom, fulfillment, and obviously prosperity in life and business. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and maybe if you're looking for answers around anxiety, burnout, relationships, trauma, workplace stress, or just simply becoming a healthier version of yourself, I think today's conversation is one that you're going to want to share with somebody that you care about. So before we begin, make sure you are subscribed on wherever platform or channel that you are watching or listening to this on, because this is, like I said, where we bring you exclusive conversations with experts who are changing lives every single day. Now, I'm really excited because today I'm joined by Diana Earl. Now, Diana, welcome to the show.
Hi, Prosper. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Well, the pleasure is all of mine. For those that are meeting Diana for the very first time, Diana is the founder of Vida Life Counselling, and she's a bilingual counselor helping individuals, couples, and professionals to rebuild their confidence, regulate their nervous systems, and also create inspired lives through compassionate, evidence based counseling. She also delivers professional development programs that help lawyers, allied health professionals, and NDIS providers to have an understanding of trauma, burnout, and resilience. And here's something that I absolutely love about Diana. She's actually Mexican,
I
and
am, yes.
but there's something that I saw in your information that you actually allergic to avocado. Now, how do you block?
Yeah. It's such a hard life, right? To be Mexican that's allergic to avocado. When I was living in Mexico, I think every day was quite an adventure, not just because it's fun, but because I had to make sure that anything that was green didn't contain avocado. Yeah, I kind of discovered it when I was about maybe 8 or 9. I would say to mom, "Oh, there's something about this thing. Like my mouth gets itchy, my throat gets itchy," and she was like, "Oh, maybe you've just put too much chili in it." And it wasn't until I was talking to my sister that she's like, "I don't get that," and that's how I discovered that. Oh, I'm actually quite allergic to avocado. I have a funny story about that. When I went to visit my aunt in Tijuana, I would have been like 19, 20, like old enough, right?
Mhm.
She, I said to her, "Hey, I'm allergic to avocado, just heads up." And she didn't believe me. So she made food and then she scraped it off. Back in the day, we didn't believe in allergies. And the next day I had this big rash. I said, "Oh, I think the water or something here is like drying out my skin." And she's like, "Oh, I thought you were just being picky with the food." And we laughed for so long because then she remembered, "Oh, yes, that's the thing as a kid that we had to be aware of." Yeah, it's
Absolutely. And I mean, obviously, it's like being Italian and being allergic to pasta, because
yeah. It's
I've
so in the soul of the food, right?
yes, yes, because I love guacamole and I just love, like, anything you could do
Yeah.
with the sauce. But you talk about you growing up and that was, the livelihood. Obviously, food must have been, pivotal. But before Vida Life Counseling existed, you were already sort of helping people and things like that. Tell us a little bit about that upbringing and yeah, who you were as that 8 year old that you just introduced us to.
Yeah. Actually, this is such a beautiful question because I think I grew up in Mexico. I live in Australia now, so obviously I've got two different worlds that I can relate to. But I think my real first understanding of social justice and trying to make sense of why the world was the way it was and how I could potentially be a positive, bring positivity into the world. I remember I might have been, I want to say maybe 7-ish. And I was, back in the 90s when you did the McDonald's parties, right? You were at the back of a McDonald's and it was a whole thing. They would organize it. And I remember I was in the party and they had a surplus of food left over. And there was a little kid outside of kind of the playground area. And I was looking at him and I was looking at the food, and logically to me, I said, "Oh, do you want a burger?" And he was like, "Oh, yes, yes, yes." I think I was too young to understand the difference in, like social standing and dynamics. I understood about poverty, having grown up in a country that had quite a lot of avid poverty, but I don't think I ever understood it at a point of the difference between privilege is probably the right word to say there. And I remember, having a chat with this little boy, probably the same age as me. He might have been older. I don't really know. I'm passing over the food. And then I guess not the parents, but like the McDonald's host kind of going, no, 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 like you got to stay in here, you got to stay in here. And I think that was my first understanding of the world's not equal. And if I can share a bit of hope and a bit of, I guess, betterness, not a real world, but I think that's something that I can contribute to the world. And probably I think that was a pivotal point for me where I identified, I think I want to do something better for this world. I just don't, I guess I was really little, so I didn't really know what I could do. And as I grew up, I entered into the world of understanding mental health and people's stories and, why people act the way they do. It's really fascinating what we do as humans. I think that was my trajectory into really wanting to get into an industry that does good for other people at an individual level. I never saw myself in like the world stage. I mean, that sounds fun, but I don't think that was my calling. And as I worked, and I've done lots of different works, I've done individual counseling, couples, but I've worked in not-for-profits, I've worked in government, I've worked in corrections, I've done employee assistance programs, I've done a lot of volunteering in lots of different areas. I think by the time I was ready to open up my business, I had clarity around the ripple effect of supporting families, of supporting most of the professionals that I work with also work with vulnerable people. So I could see that those were skills that I had learned over the years or decades. And if I could share that with other people, that would create positivity in the world in a way that sometimes I think is hard to measure because you don't see the impact of everything. But if one conversation changes the well-being of someone, that to me is success. Right? That's worth it.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for opening us up with that, because as kids, things happen around us, but we might not have a language for it. And then as we
Yes.
develop and as we grow, the language becomes apparent in our understanding of the world. And so as you were growing, obviously these things kept brewing. What did you do in terms of study about it, or were there any other instances that really solidified that this was the path you needed to take?
Well, I think there were lots of instances. Probably moving to Australia kind of showcase how the difference in two different kind of like cultures and worlds. But in terms of study, I went into university thinking I might be a therapist, I might be a lawyer. I wasn't too sure which way I was going to go. Probably around my third year of study, it became evident to me that I was not going to be a lawyer because I loved hearing people's stories and helping them. The law and interpreting it probably wasn't where my passion was. I was like, this is interesting, but I don't want to read 50 books around, commercial law and tort. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. So for me, it became evident that becoming a therapist was really the chosen path. Throughout my studies at university, I did a lot of volunteering, and I think I was quite lucky where I was placed because they often partnered me up. So like in a kind of as a team with kids that were underprivileged, a lot of kids from Aboriginal communities that hadn't had the opportunities to have one-on-one support and tutoring because I wasn't obviously graduated, I was still learning. It gave me a really good understanding of what was happening in the Australian context, and really solidified that, yes, I was here to be able to, to share the journey with someone else and uplift them. And I remember a couple of the young people that I worked with, and it was just really fun. I would come in, we would have fun. I was probably only a few years older than them. They were in high school, I was at uni. So I think that probably helped. The rest of the volunteers were usually retirees. But I was sort of doing it because I had time, right? And I don't know how I had so much time because I was working, I was tutoring. Pretty sure I worked in like a Nando's, being young and having all the time in the world. But that really solidified that this is where I want to be. I want to, have pockets of time with people where we can, if we, even for that pocket of time, if things are a little bit lighter and you can have someone that walks alongside with you, it's worth it. And then as I graduated, I chose to go into the Masters of Counseling. I really liked the way it was set up. And through there and placement, I was able to really identify, okay, who's my demographic? Who do I want to work with? And the more that you do it right, the more that you learn about people. And probably about 15 years down the track, I decided it was time to open up my own clinic. It was time to be my own boss.
Absolutely. And I mean, obviously, you have already established that we're already in Australia, but why Australia? Why would you have moved from Mexico?
Well, my parents moved us over, so I was young. I was 10. I didn't just go, oh, that part on the other side of the world sounds fun. I actually didn't really know much about Australia. I knew about Skippy, I knew about the Outback, and I knew about Sydney. When I moved to Brisbane, I actually did not know that Brisbane was a real city. Like I guess I just had no concept. And for the younger viewers out there, this was pre the internet being as good as it is. There was email and there was a little bit of that around, but there wasn't like the information that we have now. I I'm sure that my parents were looking for better opportunities. They had three daughters and they wanted yeah, they moved across the world with three kids. My dad brought over his business. I think they just wanted to have better opportunities for us, and they did. They successfully placed us in a environment that has really supported us. I'm grateful for everything all the opportunities that I've had in Australia, all the opportunities it's given me to also be able to give back. Yeah, so I came over because I was told, hey, coming over. It turned out to be a really good decision in the end. It wasn't the easiest decision. I remember saying to my parents, oh, you go over and I'll stay here. Thank you very much. You go and I'll chat to you guys on the phone. They're like, no, you can't stay by yourself. So off we came. I didn't really speak English. I didn't know anything about the culture, the language. I didn't know anything about being here. The weather was different. So it was a bit of a shock to the system. But 20 odd years down the track, I'm pretty used to it.
Oh, I can imagine. And well, congratulations. It's one of those places that grows on you, if you allow it to. Now, obviously,
Yeah.
throughout all of this, you did mention your dad was in business, and would that have been an inspiration for you to go at it on your own?
Yes and no. I say yes and no because honestly, I think it was my sister who
Okay.
was my inspiration to go out on my own. But when I reflect on it, I think my dad set the course for us because he was already, quite entrepreneurial and he decided to go out on his own fairly young. So I think he was normal back then for him to be able to do that. But it was here in Australia. I have two older sisters, so my middle sister and I were, we might as well be almost like the same soul. We're very similar. We're not twins or anything, but we're extremely similar. We think in similar ways. She's an incredibly intelligent woman, and seeing her start her own journey and her journeys in childcare centers. And just seeing what she was able to do, I think gave me the confidence to step out of the comfort zone of being in the corporate world where I was doing quite well. I'm not going to lie, it was comfortable. I was doing great things, but there was something missing. And I think anyone that kind of has their own business journey and they're an entrepreneur, once the fire is leading you, it's pretty hard to ignore it. Her journey inspired me. She inspired me. She said, "Well, whenever you're ready, I'll be here for you." And I don't have to pay her. She's kind of like my extra business coach. I send her stuff. She gives me great feedback. But I would say it was her
Mm.
above all.
Absolutely. Now, before you obviously started Vida Life Counselling, we've already established, you were already helping people and doing all of this, but there was the restriction of bureaucracy and systems. What was that was sort of hindering you to get into this as much as you would have wanted?
I think for me, because I did work a period of time in corrections, I entered into that industry and I was told you will be helping people that have generational trauma, that, haven't had the best opportunity in life. We're going to address the reasons for recidivism. For those who don't know what recidivism is, that's when someone has been caught for a crime. Maybe they do their time, whether it's in jail or whether they're doing community service or whatever it is that they do, and then they go back and commit crimes. right? So we were told, I was told, we're going to address that. We're going to address the reasons for committing crime. We're going to make really good changes here. And the reality was that the way that the system is set up, at least here in Queensland, I was working with young offenders. It was still very much a punitive system. They started to bring in a little bit of restorative justice closer to the time of me leaving, but it became very clear to me that in this very punitive system that had a lot of red tape and it was quite bureaucratic, I actually wasn't able to help these people. It was the system that kept them in because the reasons, the true reasons that, were often trauma, inequality, generational suppression, they weren't actually being addressed. So I realized that I was becoming part of the problem by being here, and I had to step out of that. Not all bureaucratic processes are bad. I do a lot of work now with people who have been injured in workplaces or have had car accidents, and there's insurance companies there that can support them. If you can understand what the process is and what I guess, the bureaucratic process and the red tape is, you can actually really help these people because they will still get their treatment funded. They will still get access to the supports that they need. This is where having a good team comes in. I think it makes a world of difference if you have the right team around you. My experiences having worked in government, having worked in non-for-profits, having worked in corrections, I think give me an advantage in now I understand what this system is asking for, right? It wants every single T crossed, every I dotted. It will tell you exactly what to do in what process, but it's very paperwork heavy. People who are struggling and maybe their mental health isn't doing well and they're in pain and they're in trauma don't have the patience to deal with paperwork. So imagine if your leg is in agony. The last thing you want to do is be filling out 20 forms in order to be able to access one thing. But if you have a team that understands, actually, you don't need to be filling out 20 forms. You need to send this email. You need to get this person to fill out this form for you. Then it becomes a better process and the healing becomes a smoother process. So
Mm.
now rather than being frustrated by the bureaucracy, I go, okay, well, how do we understand what they're needing in order to support you?
That takes a lot of empathy. I mean, obviously, you're dealing with people that you're not maybe now you are, but culturally not necessarily connected to, and also, they are going through life in a whole completely different world than the world that you would have sort of grew up in. Now, obviously, that sort of empathy
Yeah.
is a skill in and of itself. And from what you've told us, it started at a younger age. But did this actually change when you now also had your own family to take care of, where now you've got a whole different, way of looking at
Yeah.
another person?
I think your perspective shifts because when you become a mother, I'm sure it does when you become a father. I can only speak of my own experience. I think for me, I've always been empathetic with someone, and I understand. Humans are all connected. There are some core things that are part of humanity, and unfortunately, suffering is one of those things that it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, socioeconomic demographics, culture, race, we all suffer. And I think that connects us as humans. But then we have something else that's love. And I think for me was I've always been a loving person, but becoming a parent made me look at the world almost with curiosity again, right? It's that I have a new, fresh perspective. And for me, I identified the way that I was doing life was okay. But being in the corporate world in the way that it was set up with its rules and regulations wasn't set up for someone who wanted to be really for women, right? It wasn't really set up for women who wanted to be good at their careers and good at motherhood. It's like it was set up for either you do one thing or the other. We're putting that, I'm sure you've heard this, right? Women are expected to work like they don't have kids and they're expected to parent like they don't have a job. And I remember sitting there returning back to my corporate job going, I loved being here, but it doesn't fit. What has changed? I changed. My perspective of the world changed. And I thought, well, I can do this a little bit better in a way that serves me better, but serves the people that I work with better as well. That's a whole other kind of way of looking at the world where you're curious again, but your reasons for doing things, I think, are bigger than yourself, bigger than some of your ideas, because now you have, I have a little girl who looks up to me, right? And
Mm.
I would like to show her how good life can be. And I can do that because other people showed me how good life could be, because other people broke the mold, and I'm grateful to them. So I would like to, continue with those legacies.
Absolutely. Now, in the way that you speak, obviously, I can see the passion in the helping of people and things of that nature. But that usually also does not correlate to how business is done. You know what I mean? Like you can help people, but also you need to have a sustainable type
Yeah.
of a business. How difficult was it for you to let go of the belief that maybe helping people and actually making a good living,
Oh, look, that's such a great question. And I think a lot of counselors, allied health in general, will relate to this. As we do our training, we really are taught to be helpers, but there is this underlying current of you really aren't supposed to be doing financially too well out of that. Took me a while to kind of figure out, well, what is this about, right? And it's around we have to be very ethical in the way that we do. We have to be very respectful of our client. And it takes a lot of shedding to go, I can still be an ethical business owner. I can be respectful of my clients. I can follow all the norms while still being financially okay. If I'm doing financially well, if I'm not struggling to pay my bills, pay my mortgage, live a healthy life, I'm in a much better and healthier position to help you
mm,
because I have more resources available to me. I have more connections. I have more energy. It's probably why it took me from when I thought I wanted to go into private practice, why I dipped in and out of it for a good 5 years. It was kind of like shedding these identities of who am I as a counselor first and foremost. And then much later on, and I say much later on, it probably came only in the last kind of this year and a half. Who am I? A business owner, and a business owner who stands in her own 2 feet. But it took a while. I think motherhood kind of rips you wide open anyway. So you're like, well, I might as well reinvent myself while I'm here. It takes a while because you need to first understand the value of your time, and that's a massive one when it comes to allied health, because it's not just the hour or the half an hour that clients spend with you. It is the training that you've done, the ongoing professional development. It's the supervision. It's the hey, now I've read 3 or 4 more textbooks around this, and I've invested, 12 hours of my time scaling up and training up. So it goes beyond just the 1 hour. It's everything else that you're bringing into that space. And when you are able to see that and see the value in that, then I think you go, okay, now I am being honest with the value that I bring and the value that the clients will see in me.
See, most people think, once you have your field, you've got your qualifications, everything just starts working hunky dory. But obviously that that never is the case. And you also work with business owners as well, not
I
just
do.
yes, in that sort of realm. Now, do you entrepreneurs experience, like this kind of anxiety that everybody else experiences, or is it a whole different world that requires a whole new skill set from yourself?
I would say humans, yes, we experience anxiety, we experience, self-doubt. But when you enter into being a business owner, it's a kind of a different world, because when you are a business owner, you're also having to take risks a lot of the time. It's just the nature of business, right? If you don't take any risks, you don't move forward. Where I see business owners that I don't want to say struggle, maybe remove that part when you're doing your editing. Where I see business owners needing support for themselves is oftentimes we carry self-limiting beliefs, and we carry what I guess in the counseling world we're called automatic negative beliefs. And these are beliefs that we kind of created when we were very little or in our teenage years, and we're not necessarily aware of them. But usually it's something like negative belief of I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough, I'm not capable enough. Normally, these are created because at some point in our upbringing, someone told us this, or they told us this a lot. And so it becomes kind of this belief that you go, well, if I'm not good enough, I'm never going to take risks, because that protects you, right? If I don't take risks, then I don't fail, and then it doesn't confirm that I'm not good enough. But then you have this same person that wants to become an entrepreneur. Maybe they have a great business idea. Maybe it's an accountant that finds a niche, right? Oh, there's a really great niche here. But if they're not aware of those limiting beliefs or those automatic beliefs of I'm not good enough, what might happen to them is, say, they try a marketing technique, right? Or they try Google Ads or Facebook or whatever it is, and it doesn't quite hit. They might go, well, that confirms that I'm not good enough. What I would then do with them to work with them is first uncover what this negative belief is, let it go, almost like let it go out of them, so that then instead of feeling like, hey, this thing that didn't work was a failure and it confirms that I'm not good enough, it's okay, what's the feedback that I got out of this? What was the learning? Was it the right time? Was it the right amount of money? Was it the right audience? But when we walk around blindly, not being aware of what leads our behaviors, right? We have, not rose-colored glasses on, but not good enough glasses on, or I'm not confident glasses on. We accidentally step into that persona. So with the business owners, I work on that. It's still very much framed in therapy. It's not business coaching. I'm not telling them how to grow their business. It's about them becoming free of the things that limit them in order to be able to take the next step.
Absolutely. I mean, so many people walk around and don't quite realize that, they're carrying things in their past, which they might not understand why it's manifesting in the life that they are
Yeah.
living currently. Now, you're helping lawyers and I think allied health professionals,
Yes.
NDIS coordinators, and other professionals to better understand trauma, burnout, and the regulation of the nervous system. Why is this becoming important today, or this type of education becoming important today?
Yeah.
And what sort of happens if people that you help ignore
Yeah.
this?
Well, I think it's like with anything, right? We are, say, lawyers are trained in understanding the law, in understanding how to get information from clients, whether there's negligence, whether there's not, right? Counselors were trained in understanding trauma and the nervous system and well-being. But oftentimes we work with the same client. And I often think if I could just put a little bit of my training into the lawyers, this clients would have such a better outcome. So we'll use the example of someone who maybe has had pretty significant car accident, which happens, right? We make mistakes when we're driving, other people make mistakes, but sometimes some of these accidents can have long-term impacts, right? Whether it's mobility issues, whether it's a loss of confidence. Oftentimes it comes with a loss of income because they're not working as much. Sometimes it's a loss of career, it's changes in their relationship. It comes with this array of things. And they go and see the lawyer. And perhaps the lawyer is the first person that has spoken to them about. And if the lawyer doesn't know when a client is experiencing trauma, they may accidentally enter into their trauma state and continue the trauma state. And the lawyer's doing a great thing, right? They're going, okay, well, let's make sure that you are well supported, that you know your rights. And then they might go, but I feel like I'm going around and around in circles with this person. I don't understand what's happening. They're saying all the right things, but we don't seem to get anywhere with them. Or they're calling the lawyer all the time. The lawyer's like, I don't have any more information. So what I do is I bring my knowledge of what actually happens when the brain is experiencing trauma so that the lawyers know how can we ask certain questions that will be beneficial to us and the client? How do we identify when we're actually stuck in a trauma loop or when someone's anxious? And then what can we do to help that person regulate so that we can move forward with the process? This creates, I think, a very powerful dynamic in that clients seeking support, vulnerable people seeking support are in an environment that is going to be really protective for them, but also they're going to be in a position where they can make great decisions. If you are overwhelmed or stressed, you cannot make good decisions, right? Your prefrontal cortex, that part of your brain that is in charge of thinking and appreciating higher concepts, goes offline, right? And then you're in survival mode. If that's offline, you're not going to make the best decisions possible. But if we can swap that around and go, well, let's put you in a position so you can make really great decisions, that I think fully changes the course of a person's recovery, whether they come to counseling or not. But also for the people working with someone experiencing trauma, it protects them from becoming vicariously traumatized themselves. If you are feeling, you will feel what your client's feeling sometimes. Oh, our nervous system, our mirror neurons connect with someone else. If you don't know what's actually going on with that, and someone gives you the tools to identify, you are at less risk of becoming vicariously traumatized, of experiencing compassion fatigue, because you've got the skills. So it creates longevity in your career. Longevity in your career, when you are functioning well, you can have better outcomes, you can help more people, your family life is better. So it has positive impacts.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can see that even if some of us are not directly involved in that. You can watch it in a TV show, and maybe the lawyer has to look at photos and has to ask questions
Yeah,
and obviously you're putting that person back into that sort of situation, and then the empathy of you being a human will now then get you to feel those feelings, and your brain doesn't know whether it's yours to carry
ex
or not yours to carry. And usually,
exactly.
because I've heard there are some professionals who they go on and study some maybe rare condition, and they end up having that rare condition because the brain automatically is the one that is, trying to solve that mystery, and then it thinks this is for us to solve. I don't know. Is that the
Yeah.
sort of same
I
line?
know it's certainly medicine. There's lots of people that end up studying something in specific, and then they go, "Oh, I've got this thing."
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily unusual for humans to identify something within themselves and then try and study it further.
Mm.
A lot of people, I think, that come into the helping professions or lawyers, things like that, uh, they have their own lived experience of maybe something that was unfair or something that, you know, uh, didn't work right for them. So they are trying to change the course. Right? I remember meeting with a lawyer, and the reason that they decided to go into law, and it wasn't personal injury, it was a different kind of law, was that their mother was in a workplace accident, and the process of getting support was really difficult for the whole family. They didn't have the right support, and it was like years of agonizing pain and not getting in the right support and all those things. So for him to become a lawyer was a way of, if I can help someone avoid such a distressing situation, then I will. So that journey is around, it's almost like healing his inner child. Well,
Yeah.
I will make this process better for someone else because my lived experience wasn't great.
Mm. See, I talk to a lot of people on the show, and of all the chiropractors I've spoken to, most of them are coming from an injury of themselves or somebody
Yes.
that they absolutely love, and having spent some time with a chiropractor that then inspired them to want to become
Yes.
that and stuff like that. So I kind of feel like we're now full circle where like you said earlier on, you gave that kid some food, but you didn't have a language,
Yeah.
for what that was or what that meant. And food is just a symbolism of,
Yeah.
you passing on your empathy and things like that. I don't think you're simply helping people to heal here, Diana. I think you're actually giving people permission to trust themselves again, or you give
Yes.
people a language, in order for them to explain that which they're becoming and more. I don't know. How do you feel about that
Yeah.
sort of?
Well, I think that's, yes, we create a space where the brain, right? Emotions don't always have language. They don't have access to the part of the brain that has language attached to it. So when we create spaces where humans can be safe and they can just have their experience, then it allows us to have access to that part of the brain that has language, and then the experience becomes better. Humans were meant to be isolated, and I think we are quite isolated now, even though we're so connected by technology. Uh, we're more isolated, I think, than we have ever been. We have lost community. We have lost that sense of, we see each other at, like the Sunday markets, or we see this, we have to work harder for it. That's just because the world has changed, right? It's a more dynamic space. But when we lose that human connection, we lose the ability to understand emotion through someone else, to have the natural leaders that we would have had. If you think back in earlier communities, almost like more, I don't want to say primitive communities, but like ancient communities, there were always people that were leading well-being and helping people make sense of their experiences. I don't think that human need has changed. It's just our society has changed. So that is something that needs to be brought back.
Absolutely. And I mean, obviously, looking at the fact that you're coming from a whole different culture and I'm also coming from a whole different culture, everything
Yeah.
now just become a melting pot. And I think it's just now difficult for people to
Yeah.
actually pick which is the right way to be. And I think maybe that's also creating the confusion over there. But in talking of confusion, when somebody shows up to obviously to your business or your counseling practice, what can they expect and how you're helping people?
So there's a couple of things that they can expect. We're a multi-clinician, which means it's not just me in the clinic. There's two other clinicians that work with me. So the very first thing that they can expect is they will be able to see the clinician that's best suited for them. I would say finding a therapist is like finding the right pair of running shoes, right? You have to try them on. Some will give you the right level of supports right away. Others, you might need to try one or two to see where the level of support is at. So our clients can expect that, first of all, they'll be matched up with the correct counselor for what they're needing. Secondly, they are going to come into an environment that is very welcoming, um, very skilled therapists. They will, if they haven't done counseling before, will explain how counseling works. So all the admin, as I like to call it, so levels of confidentiality, if we take case notes, all of those. And then they can expect to have a space where they can exist in their true self, where they don't have to have a mask on or pretend that things are wonderful and happy when they're not. Depending on what they're seeking, they will be able to be challenged in the ways that they need to be challenged. They will be supported. They will come up with, and this surprises people, we do come up with goals, like therapeutic goals of what you want out of sessions. Couples are really great for that. One of the very first things that you'll do in your first session is you'll come up with a couple of goals that you are working towards. So, for many couples, most of them would like to stay together, but would like to feel better. Right? Some of them actually want to separate, but they want to separate in a way where they don't hate each other so they can become co-parents in a positive way. So we do create goals and we work towards those goals. The therapies that you meet, right? That is the most important thing, regardless of modality or the kind of therapy that they use. If the person that you are speaking with, if you feel safe with them, if you feel understood by them and connected with them, that's going to be the number one thing that determines whether or not you're going to do well emotionally and psychologically. And Vida, we do that very well. We don't put you with someone and we go, oh, you might not be a good fit. We'll put you with someone because immediately we want you to have a good experience. I've had far too many clients come and say, oh, I've tried this, I've tried that, and it wasn't good. Probably the number one complaint that I've had from Spanish-speaking clients has been, I went to see another therapist who said they could speak Spanish and they didn't really speak it. So they couldn't express themselves truly in this very raw emotion that they were having. So when you come to us, you're not going to experience that. You're going to, if you want the Spanish speaking counselor, you're getting someone who speaks Spanish natively.
All right. So obviously, some people would have learned their Spanish by watching the documentary. Or...
Some people have what they call like tourist Spanish or like conversational Spanish, which
Right.
is beautiful if you're just having a normal conversation. But if you are getting deep into the ingrained things that are happening with someone, particularly someone who might be experiencing culture shock or a couple that is, two different cultures, they really want someone who can understand the nuances of different cultures, of adaptation, even the way language is expressed. Spanish is a very expressive language. It's quite a romantic language. So even someone that can have those nuances, which as clients have told me, it's hard to do that with someone who either doesn't fully, like isn't fluent,
Yeah.
number one, or secondly, hasn't actually lived the language.
All right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And maybe they want to, share, cultural stuff or maybe things
Yes.
that might not relate and things of that nature. Now, where can people go to, Diana, to obviously connect with you
Yeah.
so that they can have an understanding of how else they can work with you?
Yeah, so traditional methods, I have my website, which is www.vida, V for victory, IDA-life, life.com.au. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, so if they look for Vida Life Counselling or Diana Earl Therapy, they will be able to connect with me there. I don't have TikTok. I haven't quite ventured into the land of TikTok, but I am on Instagram and Facebook, and oftentimes I'll post little videos that are short and helpful for them. And in terms of the professional development courses, they're all on the website as well. I'm always happy to come to you, or they can be run online or on a hybrid model.
Absolutely. Now, I'll make sure that all those links are on the show notes so that people can actually find their way to you there. Now, Diana, I'm really excited about what we've uncovered today. And obviously, I mean, your life story and your experience have so much value because where it actually starts off from and where it stems from really gave the sort of insight as to who you were
Yeah,
going to become, that social injustice that you noticed right from the get-go to now you having
yeah,
an understanding of, how to empathize with other people and things of that nature. Now, if you're looking back at the time that you started, this conversation, say, there was this 8-year-old, if you would go back to that
yeah.
girl who didn't understand what was happening at that particular time, what would you tell her about the act that you did and what it was going to become,
Yeah.
the person you were going to become
Oh,
after having done that?
yeah. That's actually such a powerful question because I have to reflect on that. I think I would tell her that her heart's in the right place and that she can continue to fight the fight in ways that she will not expect. But that I see her and that I see the confusion of why is the world like this? And it can get better. Yeah, people can have better lives. We just need to be able to work together to create a better world.
Absolutely. I bet she's heard that. And obviously, you've shown us where you've been, what it is that you're doing, but it would be remiss for us to not find out what's next. What are you working on now that you've brought us into your world that we can also be excited about and cheer you on
Yeah.
as you go?
I think what's next is I want to build my own space, so create a clinic that's incredibly inclusive, that we can run the workshops from there. We can have more counselors come in, a place that's very accessible. One of the things that I want to continue doing is to keep building out the professional development workshops and keep bringing some of this knowledge into different spaces, into more law offices, into more allied health, so that we can continue to build on each other's skills. That's kind of the next phase of Vida is a little bit of an expansion, more workshops that are accessible to people, so that this um, ongoing space of learning can continue to flourish.
Absolutely. Now, I can't thank you enough for the time that you spent with me today on the call. And yeah, it's been absolutely amazing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun talking to you.
So for those that are watching right now, thank you too for being with us all the way. And if today's conversation just made you realize maybe you've been carrying a little bit more than you should on your own, don't wait until life forces you to maybe slow down, reach out. So maybe whether you're navigating anxiety, relationship challenges, workplace injury, burnout, or just simply want to be the happiest, healthiest version of yourself, I encourage you to connect with Diana and the team at Vida Life Counselling. I'll be putting all those links in the show notes so that you can connect with them. And I can't wait to see what it is that you're going to be doing with this information today. So if today's conversation actually helped you, maybe you can also share this with somebody who might be quietly carrying more than they are probably letting on. It might be the encouragement that they need to take their first step towards healing. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on any of these conversations. Until next time, bye for now.